And so when we think about bench strength, so who would be up next, that's where it gets really challenging, because what we're seeing in this system is, in my surveys of local government officials, I'm seeing that the majority of them say that they don't see any alternative to working in the government. This is after the crackdown on the financial technology sector and the private sector. So they're saying, I don't see a better option than working in the government, but their satisfaction levels are really, really low. And when we ask them the question of, would you like your children to be government officials, they say no, overwhelmingly. And so what you're seeing then for bench strength is you're seeing loyalty, but not true buy-in, right? It's more like, I don't want to do anything wrong. I want to keep my head down and not get punished, but those are not tomorrow's leaders. So those are some of my concerns about, I think that the system is much better now at getting people to act in concert, but it's not necessarily encouraging the development of new leaders or more adaptive policies.
What I'm doing in my research is try to make sense of situations about which I have very limited information to base my analysis on. And this information deficiency is most acute when we deal with decision-making at the very top level. For instance, for the Politburo Standing Committee, the highest decision-making body of the party state, we know very little about its meeting schedules, its agendas, its deliberation protocols, or its voting records, either before or after the meeting. So what we can do, or what I can do, is to use my knowledge about the existing rules and sometimes historical information to try to establish some patterns. So I think it is very useful and necessary for us to remind ourselves of the limits of our analysis and to make clear to readers or the audience of what we do know and what we don't.
I think at the most, what Li Keqiang is trying to do is to demonstrate a different style of leadership, one that's very consistently pro-business, cutting taxes, cutting red tape, making business possible for foreign investors in China, to show a different style of leadership, to create this kind of, unfortunately from the ground up pressure on Xi Jinping potentially. The problem is that Xi Jinping is surrounded by people who are very close to him, Ding Zhixiang, whose careers are totally dependent on Xi Jinping himself doing well and being powerful. So they will filter a lot of this information before they even bring it to Xi Jinping. I mean, we don't even know, at least we from the outside world, we don't know how Xi Jinping interpreted what happened in Shanghai. Maybe he doesn't think it's such a big problem because the information that he's getting is that, oh, there are isolated incidents of people not getting food, but by and large, Li Qiang handled it very, very well. Of course, there are some economic sacrifices, but Shanghai did achieve close to zero COVID. So Shanghai, for all we know, internally, they're celebrating. They're popping champagne and say Shanghai is a great victory of zero COVID policy.
And if we were to get into a conflict in the Indo-Pacific, a lot of what the Army would be doing, in my view, is being a supporting force. We would be helping to set up staging bases. We would be helping to secure those bases. We would be, again, using our incredible planning power to help, plan for the entire joint force. We would be doing a lot to provide logistics and sustainment, for all of the services that would be operating, the Air Force, the Navy, the Marine Corps. But then offensively, I think, again, with the new long-range precision fire systems that we have, we would be able to, bring that to bear as well. So I think the Army has a very important role. But clearly, any kind of a future conflict in Asia will be a joint force effort. In closing, I thought I would just talk a little bit, since I know it's on everyone's mind, what we're seeing in Ukraine and what lessons learned there are for the Army. We are very much looking every single day in real time at what's happening in Ukraine and what we're seeing with the Russian military, and trying to glean as many lessons learned as we can for what we think that means for the Army in the future. And I think there are a couple of lessons that really leap out. First, if you look at the Russian military's failures, I think it underscores the importance of leadership, training, and discipline. The Russians do not train like us. They don't have an NCO corps, which is, I think, a very significant competitive advantage for the United States. And I think the terrible civilian atrocities that you've seen some of the Russian military commit is directly due to the lack of leadership, training, and discipline that they appear to have in their ranks. And again, I think, for us, you would not see that because we have an NCO corps that is really the backbone of the force for the U.S. Army. Something else you see, I think the Russians really struggling with, is delegating responsibilities down to lower echelons. That is something the United States Army does extremely well. It's one of our strengths. And I think you've seen, the Russians struggle to adapt and show initiative on the battlefield. That is another place, I think, where the U.S. Army is doing very well. A third lesson is logistics, logistics, logistics.